Genesis 6. Let's go to Genesis 6. Noach. Say Noach.
Noach.
It's not Noah, it's Noach. Noach. Doesn't sound like what his name means. His name means rest or relax. Rest. Noach sounds con ganas, con fuerza.
Sounds like someone's trying to hop something.
Sounds hard, but it's not. It's very soft, very smooth, like Saulo's head.
Well, last time I heard people talk like that was in Arabia, Egypt.
Right.
Oh,
Okay, let's read. Now it came about when men began to multiply in the face of the land, and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves, whomever they choose. Since it's a Bible study, you can ask questions, you can add stuff. You just got to let me know that you want to say something. I don't want to go on a lot of rabbit trails because we could spend all day long, all Shabbat, on just those verses we just read. And I've got a pretty cool teaching. Verse 3, then the Lord said, my Ruach will not strive with man forever, because he also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days will be 120 years. Man's days will be 120 years. That means all of men, everybody. Like, till the end of time, everybody's days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. All right, let's go down to, well, let's read 5. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was very great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. The wickedness of man was very great, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil all the time. Now, it's a lot of explicit. And in Hebrew, it's like this. You build word on top of word on top of word on top of word. Like in Spanish, like you repeat a word, like fuerza, fuerza, fuerza. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Strong, strong, strong. So, that's okay. The other door's open. So, in Hebrew, it's like every intent. Well, wait. The wickedness of man was huge. And every intent of every thought in his heart was only evil all the time. So that leaves no room, zero room for redemption.
How exhausting that would be.
Yeah.
Being thought.
No kidding.
Oh, yes.
It's totally exhausting. All right. Verse. No. Shh. Verse 10. Noach became the father of 3 sons, Shem, Ham, Japhet. Now the earth was corrupt in the sight of God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked on the earth. Now here's what I'm going to teach from today. One verse. Just one verse. And God looked on the earth, and behold, it was disgusting, because all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. Does everybody say their way? Does everybody's version say their way? Their ways, their way. Okay, the pronoun is what I'm looking for. Everybody says their, plural? Okay, not what it says in Hebrew. Not what it says in Hebrew at all. And I'm going to teach on one letter of one verse, and it's going to blow you away. It's amazing. I mean, the whole teaching came from one letter. So this is what I'm going to teach on. In the notes, if you have the notes, it says, God looked on the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way upon the earth. Here's what it says in Hebrew. Yehishchit, that means they corrupted. Kol basar, all flesh. Et darko al haaretz. Now what I'm going to teach on is that word darko. Darko. Instead of what it would be if it was really their way. It is not their way. It's whatever darko means.
How you spell that name?
Darko? How would you spell darko?
D-A-R-K-O.
That's it. Verse 12. Verse 12. Yehishchit kol basar. And corrupted, or they corrupted all flesh, their way, is the way it's translated, et darko, al haaretz, on the earth. It says in Hebrew, et darko. In Hebrew, it says et darko. All right, but that's not in Hebrew. Okay, so that's what I'm teaching on. So let's talk about the word corrupted first. Yehishchit. Say shachat. Shachat is the root of this word yehishchit, and they corrupted, and they twisted, and they messed up. Hishchit. The root is shachat, which means to destroy, to ruin, to lay waste, to corrupt, corrupted, a crime and wickedness. Now, when it says in Hebrew, v'hishchit, Rashi, this fantastic Jewish commentator, he said, hishchit means idolatry and immorality. In other words, sex and idolatry. That was the big thing. Sex and idolatry. And that's what filled the earth. And it filled the earth because where was it?
In the earth.
Nope. Every intent of every thought was wickedness constantly, all the time. So where was it? In their hearts. In their hearts. So that sex and idolatry was just completely took over their hearts. And it filled the earth. Every single human. Every human. Except one. Noach.
Was Adam still alive when Noach was born?
No.
Okay.
Methuselah was. And then as soon as Noach came along, Methuselah died. He was the oldest person alive. 969 years. Okay. So, this shachat filled the earth. Now Rashi says it's idolatry and immorality, sex. And he says it's because in Deuteronomy 4:16, it uses the same exact word. It says, tashchiton, same word, tashchiton, which means lest you deal corruptly. Lest you deal corruptly or deal with idolatry. Let's look at that. That's in Deuteronomy 4:16. Deuteronomy 4:16. It's the same word. What do you mean?
What is the word for the
Shachat. Shachat. Deuteronomy 4:16. 4:15 says, so watch yourself carefully. Watch yourself carefully, because you didn't see any form on the day the Lord spoke to you at Orev from the midst of the fire, lest you act corruptly. That's the word. The hishtachon. Sorry. Tishchiton. Lest you act corruptly and make a graven image for yourselves in the form of any figure, the likeness of male or female. Guys, so we know that it has to do with idolatry because the verse says it's idolatry, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now there are a bunch of other verses in the Torah that use the same word, and it's talking about sex. So we know it's sex and idolatry. And that's what filled the earth. Eileen and I were talking today about how bad the world is. And I said, it has to get worse. Has to get worse. Much worse. It has to get more liberal. It has to get more evil. And you're going to find out why. And Eileen said, God, just like the days of Sodom. And I said, more like the days of Noah. Problem is, we don't know what the days of Noah were like. We haven't talked about it much. We haven't studied it much. But you can see every single thought, every single motive was sex and violence. Sorry, sex and idolatry. And the next verse, the next verse says, and the world was filled with violence. So it started with idolatry and sex, and then came violence. This was the days of Noah. And what we're going to see is that that has to happen again. It has to.
So it's making another picture?
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I said, it's making another picture? Come to think of it, that's how I see it, think of it.
Yes, that's right. It's a picture. So this word shachat, it appears 3 times in verse 11 and 12. 3 times. First it says, Vatishachet, and the earth was corrupt. And then in verse 12 it says, Vahine, and behold, Nishchata, total corruption. And behold, total corruption. And then in verse 12 again, Vahishchit, and they corrupted. 3 times. So obviously it's pretty important, right? Pretty important. Okay, so let's go back to the original phrase. It said, what did they corrupt? It did not say they corrupted their heart. What did it say they corrupted?
Way on the earth.
Their way in the earth, right. Good. Their way. Their derech. Their way. Not what it says in Hebrew at all. And this is what I'm going to teach on. So, I did a study of all, well, not all, almost all the verses in the Torah, actually the Tanakh, in the whole Old Testament, that say their way. Judges 2:19 says, their stubborn ways. And it says this, say this after me, Umi darkam. Darkam. Not darko. Darkam. Darkam. Umi darkam hakasha. That means, and they're stubborn, and their ways stubborn. Kasha. Judges 18:26 says the sons of Dan went their way. What do you think it says? What word do you think it says? Darkam. Same word. It says Bnei Dan le Darkam. The sons of Dan to their way. Darkam. Not Darko, which is what it said in Genesis. And it's translated their way. It is not their way. 1 Samuel 25:12 says the youths of David returned on their way. V'darkam yeshavu. And their way, and they returned. Same word, darkam, yes.
I know I'm kind of slow, but in Shoftim 18:26, there's a note that says, we're seeing the point of the story, which is how Dan became infected, it says, with apostate religion.
So what are you reading?
It's the Orthodox Jewish.
The Orthodox Jewish Bible. It says in Judges 18:26, we see how the sons of Dan were infected with their idolatry. They're apostate. It's just a note. It's a note. It's a note. It's not in the Hebrew. It's just a note.
I just wanted to see if it was in my Orthodox Bible.
It should be. Judges 18:26. Okay. 1 Kings 2:4. It says, if your sons are careful in their way. What do you think it says in Hebrew? Darkam. It says, Benecha et darkam. Your children in their way. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, and turn, that one that you all know. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked way. So it should say, Darkam. Well, it says something like it. It says, and turn from their wicked way. V'yashuvu, and turn, midarchehem. Chehem. And yes, same word. And turn from their wicked way. Nehemiah 9:19. Lord, give them a light to. The Lord gave you a light to lead them on the way when they were in the desert. A light to lead them on the way. Now it says the way. So what should it say? It says the way. The derech, ha derech. Not darkem. Sorry. Not darkam, which is their way. It says the way. A light to lead them on the way. V'ha'ir lahem le'et haderech. Haderech. The way. Job 19:2. Cast up their way. They cast up their way against me. What do you think it says? Darkam. V'yislu alai, against me, darkam, their way. Psalm 35:6. Let their way be dark and slippery. Yehi darkam choshech. And let darkam, their way, dark, choshech.
What do you say choshech means?
Dark, darkness. Isaiah 56:11. They have all turned their own way. Havin kulam, havin, and all of them kulam darkam, their way. So the question is, in Genesis, why does it say darko instead of darkam? We know how to say their way. You say it darkam, but it says darko. Well, any word in Hebrew that has an O on the end, which is a vav with a dot on top, makes it his. Yep. So, what does it say in Genesis 6? It says, for all flesh, the way it's translated, is all flesh corrupted their way. But it doesn't say that. What does it say?
His way.
Right.
Who's the him?
All flesh corrupted his way.
Meaning God's way? No. Who's the his that we're referring to?
Everybody?
No, that would be their way.
Oh, right, that would be God's way. Referring to a third person.
Right. It says all flesh, everybody twisted his way. There's thousands of verses in the Tanakh that tell us what the way is, haderech. And there's hundreds of verses that say his way, God's way. Hundreds. And that's what was twisted, God's way.
Not just their way, his way.
No, not their way at all.
Right.
His way only.
Well, and this,
They didn't twist their way at all. They twisted his way. Only. Because that's what it says in Hebrew. Everybody on earth, except for one guy, Noach, twisted God's way. Which is why it was so disgusting. Which is why God said, I'm getting rid of everybody.
because they're misrepresenting him.
Yeah. Okay, so
In the Lord's name in vain.
keep this in mind, unless you have questions. Everybody got any questions?
What is the main verse?
Say it again.
What is the main verse or versículo?
Genesis 6:12. 6:12. First page. So, what it says in Hebrew, I'm going to say it again, is Yehishchit, and they corrupted kol basar, all flesh, everybody. Et darko, what does darko mean?
His way.
His way, al haaretz, on the earth. For they corrupted all flesh his way on earth. Doesn't that mean they had to know his way?
Yes. They chose to be evil.
Yeah.
They knew his way.
Think about that.
They choose to turn around.
I mean, people think about the times of Noach. Well, I mean, you saw the movie probably with the latest movie. What's his name?
Russell Crowe.
With Russell Crowe.
That was
And there was one before that, and one before that, and one before that. And they always make the world seem like a bunch of cavemen. No, they knew they. You don't have to believe me, but this is my opinion. Every man on earth, every woman on earth knew Judaism
I like the
because that's God's way. Now you don't have to believe that, but we're going to talk about that some more. Everybody knew Judaism, and they went,
Is this the time of Noah?
not for me, brah, not for me.
Well, that was the
Not for me.
original way.
Please don't talk while I'm talking. If you want to say something, let me know. That everybody knew Judaism, but they said, no, I don't want it. That's what we're going to get to. Now, does somebody have something to say?
No, you answered it.
Okay.
But it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense that everybody knew it because that was the original way, and the generations just pass it on, parents to kids. I mean, that's just that's normal.
Right.
You would expect that.
Yes.
Just like before the Tower of Babel, everybody spoke Hebrew.
Yes.
That was the first language.
And it's
So everybody-
obvious and it's normal, but nobody believes this. Okay. Now, let's talk about the days of Noah. The days of Noah. Noach. Let's go to Isaiah 54. There's only 3 verses in the Bible that talk about the days of Noah. The days of Noach. Huh? Isaiah 54. Isaiah 54. 7 through 10. This is a prophecy about the New Jerusalem. This is a prophecy about the New Jerusalem. But before it talks about the New Jerusalem, it talks about the times that Isaiah was in, which was horrible. Isaiah prophesied to 4 kings of Judah. 2 of them were okay, and 2 of them were horrible. One of them, the last one, put him in a tree log and sawed him in half. That was Manasseh. So he was in horrible, horrible times. When they knew Judaism. They had the temple. They had all the pictures of Judaism. And they all rejected it, except for very, very few. Isaiah being one of them that didn't reject it. So this is where he's talking. This is the space in which he's talking to Judah. Isaiah 54, verse 7. For a brief moment I forsook you, but with great compassion I will gather you. In an outburst of anger I hid my face from you, just for a little bit, but with everlasting loving kindness forever, I will have compassion on you. Who's you?
Israel.
No. No. Yes. The Jews. Judah. Remember, he was in the south with Judah. Israel is already gone. Northern Israel's gone. They've already been taken away. All that's left is Judah and Levi and Benjamin. That's about it. Yes?
So Judah is south?
Uh-huh. Israel's north, or Samaria, or Israel is north, also called Ephraim. Later on, God called Israel, all the Jews and Israelites, all of them together, including Jews. But at this time, Israel's north, they're gone. Judah's south, that's who he's talking to. Just the Jews. For this horrible time where God is going to judge Judah is like the days of Noah to me. This horrible, horrible time is like the days of Noah to me. When I swore that the waters of Noach should not flood the earth again, so I have sworn that I will not be angry with you, nor will I rebuke you, even though I'm about to kill you. So it's confusing, right? So it's like this. I'm going to discipline you. Who came and took Judah away? What nation came and took Judah away? Babylon. Babylon is at the door. They're about to come. In about 25 years, they're about to come. And there's going to be nothing left of Judah. They're going to take them all away. They're going to destroy the temple, destroy the altar, destroy Jerusalem. Nothing left of Judaism. But God says, in great mercy and compassion, I'm going to love you. I'll never hate you. Really. This is like the days of Noach to me. So the days of Noach are two different things. They're horrible, horrible judgment, and at the same time, God's love for Israel. God's love for the Jews. Both at the same time. Does that sound like anything to you?
Yeah,
What?
the day of the Lord.
Exactly.
Birthpangs.
The birth pangs in the day of the Lord. But at the same time, the resurrection and the marriage, the heavenly marriage, the giving of gifts, the sealing for redemption. But at the same time, the birth pangs and the judgment on earth. All in the day of the Lord. So, I'm going to show you that the days of Noah are a picture of the day of the Lord. That's what you're going to see. So, for this is like the days of Noah to me, when I swore that the waters of Noah would not flood the earth again. So I have sworn that I will not be angry with you, nor will I rebuke you. For the mountains may be removed and the hills may shake. Who says? When? In the day of the Lord. The mountains will be removed. Think about what that means. I mean, you look out here at the Franklin Mountains and then they're gone. That's not good. The mountains may be removed and the hills may shake, but my mercy will not be removed from you, Jewish people, and my covenant of shalom will not be shaken, says the Lord who has compassion on you. So that's good and it's bad. All right, Matthew 24. Okay, I'm not going to take a whole lot of questions on this, because I taught this 3 months ago, I think. Matthew 24:33. I taught this, I think it was 3 months ago. Then I taught it a month and a half ago. So I'm not going to be able to teach the whole thing again. I'm just going to talk about it. Matthew 24, verse 36. I'm going to need your purse. I'm going to need your purse in a minute. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father alone. For the coming of the Son of Man will be just like the days of Noah. What will be like the days of Noah? All right, this is talking about the literal coming of Yeshua. For as in those days which were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, they were marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark. They did not understand. The flood came, it took them all away. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. Said it twice now. Not the coming of the day of the Lord, the coming of the Son of Man. Then there will be 2 men in the field. One will be taken and one left. This is not the rapture. That's a lie. This is talking about... No, this is not talking about resurrection.
The judgment?
Yeah. Like when Babylon came. And one guy who's righteous is left, and the other one is taken by Babylon. Like Assyria in northern Israel came, and there's a righteous Israelite, and he's not taken, and an unrighteous Israelite who's an idolater, and he's taken. This is talking about judgment. It's not talking about the resurrection or what they call the rapture. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. And the reason I know this is because all the verses that talk about women grinding at the mill and men working in the field. All you have to do is look them up. And they talk about a guy's in the field and he looks and, oh God, here comes the Edomites. Oh God, here comes the Assyrians. Oh God, here comes the Ammonites. Simple. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken, the other will be left. Therefore, wake up. It does not say, be on the alert. It says, wake up in Hebrew. Kumi. Because you, whoever he's talking to, do not know which day your Lord is coming. So there's a lot of stuff here. First thing is this. The context in which he is talking is from verse 15. Verse 15 through verse 33. And in verse 15 through verse 33, there's more than 120 references to what? Let's do it again. The context that he's talking from is from verse 15 through verse 33. In those verses, from 15 to 33, there's more than 120 references to what? Say it together. Day of the Lord. The day of the Lord. More than 120 times. Now, this is what I can't reteach because it's just going to take too long. So you're just going to have to get the notes, get the video, or believe me. But I wouldn't want you to believe me. I want you to do the research. So more than 120 times it says, day of the Lord, 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 day of the Lord. Now, instead of day of the Lord, let's say purse. Rebecca's purse. Rebecca's purse. Verse 36 says, somebody read it for me. Verse 36.
But when that day and hour will come.
Whoa, that's a horrible translation. The word when never appears in the Greek at all. At all.
But concerning that day.
Stop, read it again.
But concerning that day and the hour.
Stop. But concerning what?
The day.
That day.
Which day?
The day of the Lord.
Right. Because he said it 120 times. So let's say Rebecca's purse. Put that in there instead of day.
But concerning Becca's purse.
And
the hour.
Okay, that's what he's talking about now. In verse 36 through 42, he's talking about the hour. Totally different from the day of the Lord. It's the hour of the Lord. The hour of the Lord is the literal coming of the Son of Man. And I can prove that very easily. You're going to have to believe me because I don't have time to go into it. Or do the research, which I'd prefer. All you have to do is look up hour in the Bible. That's all you got to do. So we have the day of the Lord. How long does the day of the Lord last?
1,000 years.
1,000 years. And we have the hour of the Lord. How long does the hour of the Lord last? 1 day. 1 day. 1 day, our day. Okay. So read it again and put Becca's purse in there.
But concerning Becca's purse and the hour, nobody knows what's in there.
I didn't say interpret, I said read it.
Okay. Yeah. But concerning that day, Becca's purse and the hour, no one knows. Not even the messengers of the heavens, but my Father only.
Okay, so I don't know what's in Becca's purse. And you don't know what's in Becca's purse. The only one who knows what's in Becca's purse is Becca. And that's what it says. Concerning, about the day. Only the Father. Only the Father knows. Now he's quoting Zechariah 14:7, which says, that day is a unique, it's one day, known to the Lord. That's all it says. That's all this is saying. In Matthew 24:36, that's all it says. It's saying the Father knows about what's in the Father's day. Becca knows what's in Becca's purse. That's all it's saying. So let's read it like that. And I've got it written here for those of you who have the notes. But no, let's turn it around and say it in English, because that's not even English. That's Old English. But of that day no one knoweth. That's not even English. So here it is in English. But no one knows concerning, about that day, the day of the Lord, and the hour. Not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father alone. The Father alone knows what?
About the hour.
The Father alone knows what?
The day and the hour.
Concerning the hour.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Only 3 people got it. The Father alone knows what?
Concerning the hour.
About or concerning?
The day and the hour.
Oh, for goodness sake. The day of...
The Lord.
Let's do it again. Only the Father knows what? No. About. You keep dropping out the only word that matters. Nobody knows about, concerning that stuff. The secrets that lie within. Nobody knows about it, concerning it. Everybody drops that word of out of the equation. But that's the only word that matters. So let's say it again. Only the Father knows what?
About that day and hour.
About the day of the Lord. About the day of the Lord and the hour. Okay, now we're talking about, now that you got that, I'm assuming, now we're talking about the hour, which is the literal coming of the Son of Man. No, which is not that day. It's the hour. What's that day?
The day of the Lord.
Right. What's the coming of the Son of Man called?
That hour.
Good. The hour. 2 totally different things. How long does the day of the Lord last?
1,000 years.
1,000 years. How long does the coming of the Son of Man last?
A day and hour.
A day. Or an hour. Something like that. Okay. Okay, now listen to it again. No one knows concerning, about the day of the Lord and the hour, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father alone. For the coming of the Son of Man. Is the coming of the Son of Man the day of the Lord?
No.
Oh, for Christ's sake. Is the coming of the Son of Man the day of the Lord? No. No. It's the hour. Is the coming of the Son of Man the hour of the Lord?
Yes.
Is the coming of the Son of Man the day of the Lord?
No.
You didn't say anything that
Except
time.
for one day of it.
Is the coming of the Son of Man during the day of the Lord?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. During the day of the Lord. For the coming of the Son of Man will be just like the days of Noach. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving. So, the days of Noach are just like what?
The day of the Lord.
Wrong.
The hour.
The hour.
The hour of the Lord. The coming of the Son of Man. And he says it twice. He says it twice. Just like the coming of the Son of Man. So will the coming of the Son of Man be.
Yes.
Okay. I know it's confusing if you haven't done this a billion times. I know. But we only have so much time. Well, we've gone over the day of the Lord a billion times, but we haven't gone over the hour. Right. All right, so let's say the initial verse again. Yehishchit kol basar, and corrupted all flesh, et darko al haaretz. What does it mean? Darko?
There.
No, not their way. His way on the earth. His way. Okay, 1 Peter chapter 3. First. What? What did you do? Hit something else? 1 Peter chapter 3. First Peter.
This is going to purse. It's ridiculous. Hold on, let's find it.
1 Peter 3. Whoop. This is the only other reference to the days of Noach. 18 through 20. And by the way, I want you to see something. This is the key word study Bible. These are all notes. Whoop. These are all notes. These are all notes. These are all notes. For 1 Peter 3, 18 through 20 that we're about to read. That's all it's about. And all of it is wrong. Every bit of it. Every single bit of it.
It wasn't me.
Okay, 3, 18 through 20. For Messiah also died for sins once for all, the just for the unjust, so that he might bring us to God, having put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which? In what? In what?
The Spirit?
Thank you. One person paid attention. Let's read it again. For Messiah also died for sins once for all, the just for the unjust, so that he might bring us to God, having put to death in the flesh, but made alive in the Spirit, in which, in what? In the Spirit. So after he was resurrected and became a ruach, a spirit, something that you can't touch, he went and made proclamation to the spirits in prison after he resurrected. Yeshua went to wherever that is, Sheol, Gehenna, the bore, means the pit, and he proclaimed himself to the spirits in prison, who once would not submit, when the patience of God kept waiting in the days of Noach, during the construction of the ark, in which a few, that is 8 people, were brought safely through the water. So how long were the days of Noah? That God kept waiting patiently.
1 day.
Wrong. How long were they? The days of, say it again? 100 years? Getting closer. You don't know? Okay, I've written it for you. Genesis 5:32. Let's read Genesis 5:30. There's 3 verses in Genesis. Genesis 5:32. And Noach was 500 years old, and Noach became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So before he even had kids, those were the days of Noach, weren't they? They're his days. How long is that?
500 years.
500 years. And then it says in 6:3, then the Lord said, my spirit will not strive with man forever. Why? Because he is flesh. Nevertheless, his days, man's days, will be 120 years. Now we're going to come back to that in a second. And then in chapter 7, verse 6, it says, now Noach was 600 years old when the flood of water came upon the earth. So he was 500, he had kids, and then how many years went by when he and his kids were building the ark? 100 years. How many years does that equal? 600. That's a picture of 6,000 years. That's a picture of 6,000 years. And then comes the day of the Lord. That's why it's called the days of Noach. It's not just the days when he was on the ark, or just the days when he was building the ark, which I don't know how long that was.
So that's why we're reading this thing.
But it's all of his life up until the flood came, which is 600 years, which is a picture of 6,000 years which is the beginning of the day of the Lord. All right, now, more specifically, Genesis 6:3 says, God is not going to fight with man forever. He'll fight with man for 120 years. That's it. And then he's done fighting with us. So it's not years, it's jubilees. Now, those of you who have the notes, you'll see that graph that shows a jubilee is every 50 years, yes? Every 50 years, and each day, each 1,000 years, has how many jubilees? 20. Only 20. 20 times 5, or sorry, 20 times 50 is 1,000. So each day, each 1,000-year day, has how many jubilees? Wow. Each jubilee, each day, each 1,000-year day, each millennium has how many jubilees?
20.
20. Okay? So 6,000 years is how many jubilees? 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120. Man's days, all of man's days, all of Adam, all of humans get 120, and then God's done. It's jubilees. 120 jubilees, and then the day of the Lord comes. Make sense? Yeah. So there's two pictures here. And they're here on purpose. The days of Noach were, in my opinion, the worst days that have ever been. Worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. Sorry, Sodom and Amorah. There's no Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah. Worse than Israel under Manasseh, the one who sawed Isaiah in half. Worse than these days. Worse than New York in 1976. Worse than anything. That's my opinion. But the day of the Lord is going to be just like that. So in order for the day of the Lord to be just like that, it has to get worse. You ain't seen nothing yet.
My guns.
Guns ain't going to help.
It's slow down.
It'll slow them down a little. You are correct, sir. It'll slow them down. It'll slow them down, but it's not going to change anything. It's not going to change anything.
It's going to happen, Captain.
That's right, Captain. Won't happen, Captain. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, it's going to be hard to be like Noach,
Brace yourself.
who was the only one who didn't have think about this. Every single intent of every single thought was evil all the time. I'm going to make myself some dinner. I think I'm going to eat my firstborn child. Think about this. Just every daily task. I'm gonna go camping. I think I'm gonna kill 6 people on the way. I don't even know what this means. I don't even know what it means that every single intent of every thought is evil all the time. I don't know what that means. Yes. Depraved. Yes, but can you picture it in your head? Like every thought? The closest I've gotten is middle school.
Right.
I think this all the time. I think, oh God, every single thing you do is wrong. I think this 1,000 times a day.
Right, listening to the Democratic debate.
Yeah. It's like listening to the Democratic debate. That's right. But I think it's going to get much, much, much worse so that the days of Noach will be like the day of the Lord.
Yeah.
It's not going to flip overnight.
Right.
Just because the resurrection takes place, that's not going to change everybody into evil all the time. It's going to get there progressively, right? It's going to take time. Yeah.
No, because that's why they call them so, we're progressives.
That's why they say we're progressives. It's going to happen progressively. Yeah. That's funny. Boy, you're full of good one-liners today.
I don't mean it, but
Well, you're right.
it comes to me.
You're right. Okay, now I'm going to show you a picture of this. Go to Ezra. Ezra chapter 4. Ezra chapter 4, if I can find it. It's in the Bible. In the Word of God. Word of God. Word of God. Ezra chapter 4. Now, what's going on is... What's going on is the temple has just been refounded, like they built the foundation of the temple. And they set up the altar. Say it again. 4. Ezra 4. So what has happened is they just did Rosh Hashanah, then they did Sukkot, and everybody came together at Sukkot, and they laid the foundation of the temple, and what they did was they set up the altar. The altar, by the way, was as big as this room, almost, 32 by 32. That's huge. No, feet, 32 by 32 feet, 20 cubits by 20 cubits. So it's huge. It was not a small thing, and they reset up the altar. In other words, they built a rock house, and everybody came and they offered sacrifices, and so they're saying this. They're saying, "God is here now. It's the day of the Lord, beginning of the day of the Lord." All right, in picture form. It's great. It's fantastic, but look back at chapter 3, verse 11. They sang praises and gave thanks to the Lord, saying, Hodul Adonai ki tov, ki leolam chasto. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His loving kindness is forever. And all the people shouted with a great shout when they praised the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the priests and Levites and heads of the fathers and the old men who had seen the first temple wept with a loud voice. Both are going on at the same time. Weeping and praising and laughing and joy. It's the day of the Lord. The resurrection takes place for the righteous, fantastic, and at the same time, what starts on earth? What starts on earth? Birth pangs. At the same moment. So this is a picture, in picture form anyway. This happens at the same moment that the birth pangs begin. Birth pangs is tribulation. What the church calls tribulation.
You said the resurrection?
Yeah. The resurrection, Rosh Hashanah 6001, happens at the same moment that the birth pangs begin.
That's the start of it.
Because that's the tribulation.
No, it's not the tribulation. It's the birth pangs. It's what the church calls tribulation, but the Bible calls birth pangs. And the birth pangs happen at the same moment that the crowning of the king, beginning of the kingdom, resurrection, and the heavenly marriage happen all at the same time. I don't know how that got by you, but it got by you. So, day of the Lord starts, and the very first thing that happens is this. Chapter 4. Now when the enemies of the Jews and Benjamin heard that the people of the exile were building a temple to the Lord God of Israel, they approached Zerubbabel and the heads of the fathers and said to them, "Hey guys, let us build with you. Let us build with you, because we, like you, seek your God. And we've been sacrificing to him ever since this guy Esarhaddon brought us here." Esarhaddon was the king of... Esarhaddon was the king of Assyria. So, did anybody know who these guys are?
Syrians?
These are the Nazis of Israel.
Oh,
They have another name.
I have it listed here as Samaritan.
That's it. Samaritans.
that's right, the anti-Semitism.
The Samaritans. The Nazis. Now, you Christians, all you ever know about a Samaritan is the Good Samaritan. There's no such thing. That's like saying the good Nazi. And that's why Yeshua told that's the parable. He's telling them, even the Nazis are more righteous than you in your heart. So it had a lot more impact than the Good Samaritan. Now I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you where these Nazis, these Samaritans came from. So let's go to 2 Kings 17. 2 Kings 17. Please remember that all of this is from one letter in Hebrew. Darko and Darkam. From Darko to Darkam. That's what this whole teaching is about, is from. One letter in Hebrew. 2 Kings 17. Verse 1. In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea, son of Elah, became king over Israel. Israel is north, Judah is south. In Samaria, Samaritans, Samaria, and reigned 9 years. These were the most evil people in the entire Middle East. And they were Jews. They were Israelites. They were from the tribes, the northern tribes. He did evil in the sight of the Lord, not only as the kings of Israel, only not as the kings of Israel who were before him. So he was a little better than the ones before him, but not much. Shalmaneser. Now, Shalmaneser is Esarhaddon. They're the same guy. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against him, and Hoshea became his servant and paid him tribute. The king of Assyria found conspiracy in Hoshea. So what happens is Assyria attacks. Assyria attacks. Verse 6. In the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Assyria captured the Samaritans, Samaria, and carried Israel away into exile to Assyria, and settled them in Hala, Chavor, and on the river Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. That's the Persians. That's Iran. Now this happened because the sons of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up from the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and they feared other gods. Did they know Judaism?
No, sounds like nuts.
Yes, they're Jews in Israel. Did they know Judaism, I said? Did they do Judaism? No. And that's the difference. They changed it. They changed God's way. Darko, his way. Not Darkam, their way. The Jews changed God's way.
Yep.
And so God said, later, you're gone. Verse 8, here's what they changed it to. They walked in the ways of the Gentiles. That's what they changed it to. So they changed Judaism for what nowadays would be called Christianity.
Right. Exactly what I thought.
Nowadays, that's what it would be called. Verse 9, and the sons of Israel did things secretly which were not right, against the Lord their God. Verse 10, they set for themselves pillars and asherim on every high hill. Every high hill. And under every green tree. I don't know what that means. An altar under every single green tree. I think what that means No, it's not Christmas. I think what that means is every intent of every thought was evil all the time, every day.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
if you
'cause,
think about
cause-
how many possible green trees there could be, it's like countless.
Right,
Because
Well,
a
it's
tree
like
is
just-
considered a human or a man.
right. Trees are people.
Yeah,
So every,
So,
every living one,
yes, in picture form,
that too.
there was idolatry in every single person.
Yeah,
that's what it is, huh?
Just like the days of Noah.
Wow.
Now, that's my opinion. You don't have to believe that.
no, but that's the right picture.
Yeah. Verse 12, and they served idols. That's her. Well, that's okay. Now, in verse 20, in chapter 17, let's go to 17. Oh, I'm in 17, 24. Now, 24 through 40 tells the stories of these Samaritans. The evil, hated, disgusting, vile Samaritans. The Nazis. The king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, and from Kuta, and from Ava, and from Hamat, and from Sepharvaim, and settled them in the cities of Samaria, in place of the sons of Israel. They replaced the Jews with these guys from Assyria, Babylon, and Persia. So they possessed Samaria, and they lived there. And it came about at the beginning of their living there that they did not fear the Lord. So the Lord sent lions and ripped them up. And so they went to the king named Shalmaneser, who is Esarhaddon, same guy, went back to Esarhaddon and said, oh, send us some Jew priests, because we don't know how to live in that land. Their God sent a bunch of lions and killed us. So he sends priests, Jewish priests, to Samaria and teaches them the ways of Yehovah. Sort of. Sort of. Verse 27. The king of Assyria established, saying, take there one of the priests whom you carried away into exile, and let him go and live there. Let him teach the custom of the God of that land. So one priest, whom they had carried away into exile to Shomron, came and lived at Bethel and taught them how they should fear Yehovah. And these are a bunch of pagan Nazis. But every nation still made gods of its own and put them in the houses of the high places which the people of Samaria had made. Every nation in their cities which they had lived. And the men of Babylon made Sukkot Benot, and the men of Kut made Nergal, the men of Hamat made Ashima, the Avites made Nibhaz and Tartak, and the Sepharvaim burnt their children in the fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of the Sepharvaim. But they also feared Yahweh, Yehovah. Isn't that beautiful?
Mixing.
So what's wrong with that? There's Christmas, there's Easter, there's communion, there's whatever else, catechism and everything else. So what? Halloween, right? St. Valentine's Day.
Right.
So what? Big deal.
But how can you fear God by doing everything wrong?
You can't.
It says they did. So what?
We're just covering no bases is what they're saying.
That's three. That's good. They're covering all their bases. You got
Which way is right?
three good one-liners.
I think I missed my call on you.
Right? So
Good coffee this morning.
what's wrong with that?
Everything.
Why?
Turn them away from God.
He said, don't
It
do
didn't turn them away from God. It says they served Yahweh, Yehovah, Adonai.
He went and taught him.
Oh, okay, but you're not answering my question. What's wrong with that?
He changed his ways.
Right. That's the bottom line. They changed his way. That was his way. They knew his way. These guys didn't know his way. A priest comes down and says, okay, guys, here's his way. And they go, Okay, well, we'll do some of that and some of that.
Let's add some of this too.
Right. That's changing his way.
Throw a little bacon in those beans.
So, what? That's a good one-liner. Let's throw a little bacon in those beans. So, what was changed? I mean, what did they change? Did they change their ways?
No.
Or did they change his way? And that's the bottom line. That's the point. That's the point.
It's like, remember we used to know someone that would put up a Hanukkah bush?
Oh, there's a lot of people who put up Hanukkah bushes. Yeah, there's a lot of Messianic Jews do that. They put up a Hanukkah shrub, a Hanukkah bush, because their wife is Christian and they don't want to get rid of Christmas, and so they mix the two and they do both. What's wrong with that?
Maybe we should have a Festivus.
This is America. Festivus. This is America. What's wrong with that?
People say, well, as long as it's okay with God, we think that it's okay.
Right?
And
As long as it's okay with God.
But did you ask him in prayer? Did you ask him in meditation?
Hey, listen.
Did you look at
Listen,
the
I
word?
know a lot of Messianic Jews who did ask God. And God didn't do anything to them, so what's wrong with that?
So I just go like this. I step away. Okay, I'm waiting.
Why?
See if he strikes you dead.
Nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Nothing is going to happen to them. Nothing. In fact, their church is going to get bigger, or their Messianic congregation is going to get bigger, because more people will come, because more people like it.
Mega churches.
Because it has to happen.
Right. It has to happen.
Oh, very true.
So, let's have some seichel, some smarts about it. Don't think God's going to judge people. He's not. Yet. And don't think you're doing the right thing or by going to a congregation and, well, they're talking about Messianic Judaism. Don't think you're doing the right thing because it felt good and whatever. Or you come here and somebody tells you something, or I tell you something, and it's bull. And don't think something bad's going to happen because you went, oh, I like that. And don't think this place is going to grow. And don't think that other place is going to grow. Or it's not going to grow because God's going to judge them. None of that makes any difference. There's God's way, or the highway. There's God's way or
Every other way.
a mixture. And that's all there is. And I would submit to you, you more than Eileen and I, but us too, you've got a lot of mixture in you.
A lot of what?
Mixture
Oh, yes.
in you. So do we. So do we. But not as much.
Takes time.
It takes a long time to figure out how to untangle the threads of the nonsense that you've been taught somehow is worship to God. They were sacrificing their babies and going, Yehovah is so pleased that I put my baby in the fire. Look at yourself. Don't look at others. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Okay, so that's the story of the Samaritans. There's no such thing as a good Samaritan. It was a story. It was a parable. It was a story he taught that was just freaking absurd. The good Nazi. There was no good Samaritan, and there certainly were not a bunch of them. Go to John chapter 4. Certainly not a bunch of good Nazis. And you know what? All you have to do is say the word Samaritan, and Christians think it's a good thing. Here's how Yeshua spoke to the Samaritans. Wait, before you read it, how do you think Yeshua spoke to the Samaritans?
He didn't.
Yeah, he did. He most certainly did.
Okay.
Say it again? Called them vipers? No, he reserved that for his brothers, the Pharisees. Yeshua was a Pharisee. How do you think? What do you think Yeshua said to the Samaritans? No clue? Huh? Say it again? You're lost?
Dogs.
Oh, dogs?
Yeah.
Yep. Called a woman, a Samaritan woman, a dog.
Right.
And not only that, he told them, you don't even know who you worship. That's how he talked to them. Okay, John chapter 4, verse 22. He never said this to the Jews. Wait, let's look at verse 19. 4:19. This woman, Samaritan woman, said to him, Rav, I can tell you're a prophet. And then she says, our fathers, these are the ones that are in 2 Kings that we just read about. The ones from Babylon, Assyria, and Persia, who had one priest to teach them. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain being Gerizim. And you all, y'all, who's the y'all?
Jews.
The Jews.
Oh, Jews.
And you Jews, say that Jerusalem is the place where men should worship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeshua said to her, woman, believe me, an hour is coming when neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father. Which hour is that? Right. The day of the Lord. First thing he says to her is about the day of the Lord. You all worship what you don't even know. You're worshiping a God you don't even know. We, the Jews, worship what we do know. Because salvation is from the Jews. That's who he said it to, the Samaritans.
And salvation is Yeshua. Yeshua
Is from the Jews. Salvation is from the Jews. He said this to the Samaritans. And by the way, it wasn't just some woman he's talking to privately. There's a bunch of Samaritans around.
Well,
You all, it says in Greek, plural, you all don't even worship what you know. You're worshiping somebody you don't even know. We worship what we do know. Salvation is from the Jews. Now, I feel like saying that to Christians every day. You worship who you don't even know. Because you're not going to the Jews. Salvation is from the Jews. Now does that have a little more impact since you know who he's talking to? The Nazis. The Nazis in Israel.
I was going to
Yes.
say another thing too, that like when the Jews would look for the new moon, the Samaritans.
I was gonna talk about
what
that.
They would do, what the Jews would do was they'd light these fires, and they would, basically
Signal fires.
signal fires, like, okay, we saw the new moon, and then another signal fire, and oh, we saw the new moon.
There were signal fires every about 15 miles, all the way from Jerusalem to Babylon.
And just to kind of give you another
And, well, you didn't say what they did. The
Yes,
Samaritans
I'm
would...
going to say it.
Okay.
And just to give you another inclination of what the Samaritans did to corrupt what was going on about, showing when the new moon was, so that it was a celebration and we could honor God.
Are you picking her up?
The
Okay, good.
Samaritans would light fires when there wasn't the new moon, and it would throw everything off.
Yes, it threw off the entire calendar for the whole year. And they did this month after month after month. They were wicked. They were trying to change his way. Because their fathers changed his way. And she said it. Our fathers taught us a different way. Our fathers taught us that Jesus was born on December 25th. You people, you Jews, say that Yeshua was born on the first day of Sukkot. Yes?
Were the Samaritanos part of the 10 tribes?
No. They were brought down from Babylon, Assyria, and Persia.
Who wrote them?
Esarhaddon. It says it right here. Eser Hadon, Shalmaneser, same guy.
It wasn't the,
They changed God's way. They changed his way. They replaced Jerusalem, Zion, with Mount Gerizim, which is where Joseph was buried. Yehishchit kol basar et darko al haaretz. All flesh corrupted his way in the earth. All flesh corrupted his way in the earth. Okay, now let's talk nuts and bolts. I'm only coming up with one example. There's millions of them. And I'm not even talking about Christmas. Isn't that nice of me?
Yes.
Let's talk about Shabbat. How did Christianity change Shabbat from Saturday to Sunday? From Saturday to Sunday. Well, it happened progressively. No, it happened progressively. Way before Constantine. I've got some quotes here. So you've got it. This is from a letter written from Ignatius, one of the, quote, church fathers, to the Magnesians, which was in Magnesia.
Like milk of magnesia?
Right. Like milk of magnesia.
That's what we're saying, like the magnesia.
Okay.
That's why I didn't say it.
Okay. All right. Shh.
Children.
It's a little letter from Ignatius of Antioch, who's a, quote, church father, to a group of believers in Magnesia. If we live Judaism, we confess not having received grace. Now, this is in the year 110, only 100 years after Yeshua. We confess not having received grace. Those who were brought up in the ancient order of things have come to the possession of a new hope, no longer observing the Sabbath, but living in the observance of the Lord's day. Less than 100 years after all the Jews were dispersed when the temple was destroyed in 70 AD. 70. It's only 30, 40 years later.
So the person who actually wrote this letter saw those days
And
went to going to Sunday rather than Saturday.
yes, and he's a church father. The year 110. The Jews were all killed off in 70. No more Jews. And then there was a war between what Jews were left and Rome that went on from 130 to 160. And they were all gone after that. None. Zero. All gone. This is before that.
Well, there weren't any. They're all.
None. They're all gone. No Jews in to go to the congregations and say, that's paganism. What are you doing? Well, our fathers taught us this. In Turkey and Greece and Rome, Italy, Spain, all over the Middle East, no Jews left to say that's wrong. By the year 90, that's when John was killed. He was the last one killed. 90. No more.
Like, you mean observant Jews?
I mean believers, Jewish believers.
Okay, yeah, that's what,
Jewish believers to say that's wrong. Because they're going to believers, and the believers were meeting on Shabbat. But progressively,
you were killed off.
there were no Jews to say, hey, let's do Shabbat. And they said, well, our Mithra fathers taught us to worship on Sunday. It came from Mithra. Jesus was born on December 25th because Mithra was born on December 25th. They worshiped on Sunday in Mithraism, which was adopted into Rome. It happened progressively. All right, here's another one. This is from 155 to 170. This is from Justin Martyr. He's a big church father. In dialogue with another church father named Trypho. I do not observe Sabbath and the feasts because they were given to Israel. Why were they given to Israel? On account of their transgressions and hardness of heart and their unrighteousness. That's why God gave the Shabbat and the festivals, because the Jews were unrighteous. According to the church father from 155 to 170. This is 200 years before Constantine.
Wow.
And then comes Constantine, who made himself the bishop of the Catholic Church. And they called it, Catholic means universal. Made himself the bishop of the universal congregation. And he says, on the venerable day of the sun, S-U-N, sun worship, on the venerable, that means exalted day of the sun, let the magistrate and people residing in cities rest, and let all workshops be closed. In the country, however, people engaged in agricultural work may freely and lawfully continue their pursuits on the venerable day of the sun. Isn't that kind of him? Because it often happens that another day is not so suitable for grain growing or for vine planting, lest by neglecting the proper moment for such operations, the bounty of heaven should be lost. He's so kind. So this is 320, the year 320. And then in 360, this is from the Council of Laodicea or Laodicea in Greece. This was all the bishops getting together and saying, this is law in the church. 360. Christians should not Judaize. Done. That's it. So now it's set in stone. Judaizing came from these guys. There's no such word in the Bible. They made it up. And they made it up because that's what it was. Making people Jewishly. Making them do Jewish stuff. Which would be the only thing that's right. Because it's his way, exactly. It's his way. And the church said, no Christian shall spread his way. Period. Nothing has changed. Nothing's changed. You might see a little taste here and there among believers, but nothing has changed. They still have as law, no Christian shall Judaize. And should not be idle on the Sabbath, but should work on that day. They should, however, particularly reverence the Lord's day. And if possible, not work on it because they were Christians. Mm-hmm. Now, when it says, it says the Council of Laodicea, Canon 29. Canon means law. These are laws. This is the 29th law given to Christians. It is by law in the church that no one is to keep Shabbat. And then in 1566, that's another 1,200 years later, it's catechism. Do you know what catechism is? Those of you who are Catholic know what catechism is. That's what they teach you. Like they'll ask you a question. Is that correct? They ask you a question, you respond back with a statement of canon law, of Catholic law. Anyway, catechism is how you teach your children Christianity. You taught catechism? Is that correct? You ask them a question, they answer back with what's law in the church, right? Okay, I don't know.
The ways of Catholicism.
Okay, please don't muddy up when I'm trying to get some clarity. Is that correct? Okay, because I don't know, because I'm a Jew. So I'm asking. Okay, so here's from the Catechism of the Council of Trent, which was printed, like it was finally printed in 1566, but it had been going on for 1,000 years. From the Council of Trent. The Church of God has thought it well to transfer the celebration and observance of the Sabbath to Sunday. And that's what the little children say. You ask them, is this correct? You ask them, I don't know what you ask them. You ask them something about Sabbath. Do you remember what you asked?
No, I don't quite remember.
Okay, let's go on then.
Yeah, but,
So you ask them a
something
question.
like that.
Okay, you ask them a question about Sabbath, and the little child responds back, the Church of God has thought it well to transfer the celebration and observance of Sabbath to Sunday. Done. So what has happened is God's ways have been, his ways, God's ways have been changed in God's body. Just like Israel, northern Israel. These were Jews. And they were worshiping under every green tree. And they were worshiping all these demons. And so God said, you're out. And so Esarhaddon brought a bunch of pagans in. They went into Samaria. And they populated Israel. Esarhaddon, who is Shalmaneser. Same guy. The king of Assyria. So, let's get back to the original verse. This is the end of it. All flesh has corrupted his way on the earth. Now think about that. For all flesh, every person on the planet, except for one, to corrupt God's way, what does that mean they had to know?
God's way.
They had to know it. That means everybody on earth knew God's way. And they chose something else. It also means that God had spread his way to all flesh.
Right.
Who do you think spread God's way?
The Jews.
There were no Jews. This is Noah.
Everybody.
During the time.
Everybody.
Yes, the Spirit of God, and also Adam, Seth, Methuselah, and Noah, and that's it. Oh, no, and Enoch. That's it, 5 people. That's all there was that were righteous. Adam, Seth, Methuselah, actually Enoch was before. Enoch, Methuselah, and Noah. And that's it. So it was the Spirit of God and 5 guys who spread God's way to the whole earth. So they knew it. And this means they had to know it to change it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
This means that his way has to be corrupted in all the earth. Why? It has to be corrupted in all the earth. Nowadays, why?
Because it says that's the way it is in the day of the Lord.
Right, because the day of the Lord is like the days of Noah.
And it's going to happen again.
It's going to happen. Well, it is happening again.
Yeah, it's happening.
It is.
But the fulfillment of it's going to happen again.
You know what's amazing?
Get to that degree.
You stop and think about it. There, okay, you're saying one guy, and then you said 5 guys that actually were spreading
Over time.
over time. But the whole world knew because of those 5.
Right.
So it's like, you know, do not despise the day of small beginnings.
Yeah.
Do not, you know, look at, oh, we're a small group or we're a small bunch of people.
And there's also other small groups.
There's other small groups, but it's like, you know what? Just open your mouth and it'll spread.
Right. Okay. So this also means, now think about this. Just because we know God's way doesn't mean we can't corrupt it,
Right.
Right.
which some of you are doing.
Yes.
I've watched you do it. I've watched you do it. Even though you know that thing, you'll jump away from that thing and twist it
Want to do it your way.
and do it your way. I've watched you do it. I've done it too. I just don't do it as much as you because I'm a Jew. And the punishment, I shouldn't say that. The discipline on me is a lot, discipline is a lot harder on me and Eileen than it is on you. A lot harder. I'm on such a short leash, it's ridiculous. But I've watched you change what you know to be God's way. Like I'll tell you, I'll give you explicit instructions about something when you're praying. Don't do this, it's wrong. Here's why it's wrong. Don't say that, it's wrong. And you'll go, yes, I get it, I understand. And then you'll do it. Yes.
Israel would go back to Jacob once in a while.
Yes, Israel and Jacob keep flip-flopping back and forth. But let's think about yourself. Just keep it on you. Keep it on you. Because if you're going to get this and you're going to live it out, you're going to have to think about you and only you. This is what I do every day. I think about me and only me. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What do I know to be right? What am I screwing up? And that's really all I think about all day long.
I think I'll agree with you with that.
Yeah. Because she does the same thing.
What is Michael doing right? What is Michael
No. What is Eileen doing right? What is Eileen doing wrong? No, she does the same thing. She examines herself all day long.
That's good.
Yeah.
You catch yourself.
Yeah.
Flesh, spirit, flesh,
Sure.
spirit.
Sure. Exactly. You go flip-flop back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. Just because we know God's way doesn't mean we're not going to screw it up. We cannot corrupt it. Doesn't mean we cannot corrupt it. Now, that also means one last thing. It means there has to be a right and wrong.
Absolutely.
How are you going to know what it is?
It's in the Bible.
Yeah, don't give me that. It's in the Bible. It's in the Word of God. So then why don't you know it? Miss, it's in the Word of God. How come you don't know it? Yeah, it's been misinterpreted. That's correct. You haven't taken the time to study it. You have not studied it. You've been lazy about it. Why else don't you know what's right and wrong?
That's the only reason.
No, it's not the only reason. Because you're stubborn. You've been taught certain things and you flip and you go back to where you were.
That's true.
There's that too. I know because I do it. I know this because I do it. So really that's all there is. There's that we're stubborn, that we're lazy, we don't study, or we've been taught a bunch of garbage that we believed. And we don't know the difference. That's really all there is. The plumb line is Judaism. The plumb line is Judaism. It is